At this point, we've tried both manually sculpting our damage deformation and simulating that deformation with cloth, whether that's Maya's Encloth or Houdini's cloth, or maybe you've tried both. But now we can pick one of those versions that we like the most and start doing some rigid body simulations in addition to that. In my case, I like the Encloth version the most. In practice, I've pretty much always done this with either manually sculpting it or with Encloth. Very few people that I know try to do anything in Houdini cloth really, but I certainly want to make that an option for you if you want to stay totally within Houdini. And here we have my Encloth results. A couple changes since last week. I added the support beam as a collider on the left-hand side over here, and I've also increased the collision iterations in the nucleus solver to get rid of some of the vibrations. And I've added some colliders over here as well, over on this right side toward the end of the shot. Now we're seeing a little bit of weirdness with how these pieces are intersecting over here and it's behaving a bit unnaturally, but that's not going to be a problem for us because we're not going to be strictly driving this all with cloth. I'm thinking we'll leave a large section of this driven by the cloth, mainly the portion of it closer to the robot, and the areas closer to the brake we don't need to even attach to the cloth. We can disattach that and we can let that fall as normal rigid objects. Now to set this up, let's go back into Houdini, and if you've set up the cloth deformation in Houdini, we can use that rough setup to attach our Encloth as well. If you did just do the Encloth without doing the Houdini cloth version, you may want to go back and look at the Houdini cloth video to see how we've set this up, but I'll take another quick look at it here. At the bottom of this network, we have our point deform node, which we're using to attach our fractured pieces to the Houdini cloth mesh, and this helipad to cloth is the animated version without simulation of that falling chunk, which is being passed in at its start position as the rest position for the point deform. That's its second input. And Houdini is exporting its cloth simulation from this DOPNet, which is going through a blend shape that we're using to control the overall amount of deformation from the anim. And that's going into the third input of the point deform. So we can still keep this stuff as we attach our Encloth mesh. Now I've imported the Encloth simulation via Alembic, of course, and called it Encloth damage. So we can object merge that into our cloth deform setup here. Drop in the object merge node and select the Alembic 1 under Encloth damage. And if we display that, you won't see it because it's in the full scale position. And you'll notice that on the geometry node for the Encloth damage, I've set the uniform scale 2.1 to get it into the proper space. And if we set the transform on object merge to int this object, then it'll be in the proper space that we need it. Now this helipad to cloth node is just the animated tower chunk. You'll notice it's the same geometry, but just the raw animation. So we can connect the second input of this blend shape to our Encloth node in order to blend between the anim and the cloth sim. Now if you display that, you'll notice that it's not working properly because our cloth object is packed geometry and the animation geometry is proper polygonal geometry. We can fix that quickly just by copying this unpack and convert node here, and we'll paste that underneath our object merge and move that up a little bit, and now our blend shape should be working just fine. If you select that blend shape node, this blend 1 will blend between the original animation, just like this, and our cloth animation, like so. Now if we display this point deform node and show our other geometry, you can see how we can use this to nicely adjust the amount of cloth sim. Oftentimes, it's nice to use just like half of the sim, or even, 90% of the sim. You can use your own artistic judgment. But in this case, you'll notice with the blend attribute set to 1, that's the entire sim. And if we set it to 0.5, you'll still get some interaction and some indentation, but you can control just the amount of the cloth effect that way. For now, let's work with, say 90% of it, and then as we work on this shot more, we'll see if we need to adjust it as we go. I suppose I should also note that this video isn't meant to imply that the Encloth version is the version that you should be using. We've done the manual sculpt and Encloth, maybe Houdini cloth as well, and you can use a combination of your own artistic judgment and the feedback that I've given you over the last couple weeks to determine which of your versions you should go ahead with as we develop our rigid body simulations.